With more at stake than the usual vice presidential debate, J.D. Vance and Tim Walz will face off in New York City on Tuesday night. The two nominees, who hail from different Midwestern states, are trying to capitalize on what may be the final big event before Election Day. The vice presidential contenders' debates typically have little effect on politics. However, given Republican front-runner Donald Trump's unwillingness to take on Democratic opponent Kamala Harris once more, the Vance-Walz matchup will probably be the last time the two camps square off in front of a nationally broadcast audience. The face-off hosted by CBS comes 35 days before the election, with Harris and Trump locked in a razor-close race that appears likely to be decided by the outcomes of 7 battleground states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. VP debates aren't usually that important, but I would argue that there's more at stake in this one, University of Pennsylvania political science professor Matthew Lewandowski said. Because Harris entered the race so late, and there was only one presidential debate, people will be more attuned to this one. Two guys who have staked their political identities on their Midwest origins square off in this debate. Through his book, Hillbilly Elegy, Ohio Senator Vance, 40, has constructed an image of a self-made man who overcame poverty and family issues by pulling himself up by his bootstraps. The governor of Minnesota, Walz, 60, was chosen by Harris to be her running mate in part due to his blue-collar appeal. He is a cheerful, easygoing, flannel-clad former high school football coach who is portrayed in campaign advertisements as the average dad mending cars and cleaning gutters around the house. In the discussion over who is the real middle American, these factors created a rivalry, according to Lewandowski. Popularity-wise, Walz enters the debate ahead of Vance. The stakes are higher since Vance is running to be Trump's vice president. Trump, 78, is a one-term president who just declared he wouldn't run for office again in 2028 if Harris wins. In the event that Trump prevails in November, Vance would emerge as the most likely MAGA agenda successor and the early favorite to succeed the term-limited Trump in the ensuing presidential campaign. As Harris's primary defender, Walz must work to win over people who aren't sure about the current vice president but aren't admirers of Trump. After President Joe Biden withdrew his candidacy for re-election in late July due to pressure from party members who were worried about the 81-year-old incumbent's chances of defeating Trump, Harris quickly earned the Democratic nomination this summer. As Trump's running partner, Vance has had a difficult introduction of his own. A number of previous interviews that Vance had disparaged childless women, calling them childless cat ladies, in one instance, have come to light. Others brought to light Vance's prior critique of Trump. Vance said last week in a 2020 Twitter direct message that Trump thoroughly failed to deliver on his economic populism. This was published by The Washington Post. Polls suggest that Americans have a more positive opinion of Walz, which may be explained by these conflicts. According to a USA Today, Suffolk University poll conducted in August, 37% of prospective voters nationwide have a positive opinion of Vance, while 49% have a negative one. Of those who were likely to vote, 48% said they thought favorably of Walz, while 36% did not. It goes without saying that a running mate's top priority is to do no harm. A professor of political science at the University of Akron named David Cohen stated, "And what we've seen from J.D. Vance is an awful lot of harm." And so I think that the biggest pressure in the debate is on Vance, who is such a lightning rod. How the two candidates intend to combat their rivals. In typical pre-debate maneuvering to depress voters, both teams are downplaying the impact of their primetime meeting on Tuesday night's election result. Following her September 10 debate versus Trump, in which both voters and commentators mostly believed she had won, Harris saw only a slight increase in her polling numbers. The Harris team wants the vice presidential debate to resemble the one between Harris and Trump from last month, when an assertive Harris forced Trump to defend the scope of his campaign events. Vance will likely be treated by Walz as merely a proxy for the Trump agenda. Nevertheless, the Harris campaign and Walz personally have made a concerted effort to present Vance as a skilled debater, highlighting his background from Yale Law School and other interviews over the years. "I will put in a lot of effort. That's what I do," Walz said in an interview with MSNBC's Rachel Maddow following the only presidential debate. "I fully expect that Senator Vance, as a United States Senator, a Yale Law guy, he'll come well prepared." Vance's liberal record as governor of Minnesota, which included enforcing stricter gun laws, increasing paid family and medical leave for employees, and offering free meals to all public school children, has been hinted to by the Trump team. In Minnesota, Tim has been an absolute disaster. He's really adept at projecting an image of being a folksy, kind, and grounded guy until people learn more about him and his views, according to House Republican Whip Tom Emmer, R-Min, who is acting as Trump's surrogate, said on ABC's This Week, on Sunday. Emmer continued, referring to the Democratic governor of California, saying, "Once you get to know the real Tim Walz, he's like Gavin Newsom in a plaid shirt." Buttigieg's Vance and Emmer's Walz during debate preparation. Throughout Vance's preparation for the debate, which has taken place in Cincinnati and through virtual Zoom sessions, Emmer has portrayed Walz, a fellow Minnesotan. For the practice sessions, Fox News personality Monica Crowley, a former Assistant Treasury Secretary under President Trump, has taken on the roles of CBS co-moderators Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan. Vance's debate techniques have been heavily influenced by Trump campaign strategist Jason Miller and his wife, Usha, who has mainly stayed out of the spotlight during the campaign. Pete Buttigieg, a former presidential contender and transportation secretary, prepared for Walz's debate by portraying Vance, whom Buttigieg has frequently made fun of since Trump selected him. Where do you start? In July, Buttigieg responded to a question about how he would approach a debate with Vance during an MSNBC interview. "They've selected somebody who has really reminded so many Americans of why they are off-put by the turn that the Republican Party has taken in the last few years." Rob Friedlander and Zain Sadiq, two Harris-Walz campaign aides, have overseen the debate preparation sessions, which have taken place in Minneapolis, Harbor Springs, Michigan, and on the campaign route. Chris Schmitter, a long-standing senior advisor to Walz, and Liz Allen, a veteran State Department official who serves as Walz's chief of staff for his campaign, have also assisted with the debate preparations. According to Princeton University history and public affairs professor Julian Zelizer, at some level, both have to do the basic goal of just demonstrating through demeanor, visuals, and words that they would be people you could imagine as President of the United States. According to Zelizer, Walz and Vance intend to fulfill their respective campaign roles as attack dogs. This means that Vance will be criticizing the Biden-Harris administration's record on immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border and the economy, while Walz will be embracing an economic populist agenda and his catchphrase of "weird" to characterize Trump and his MAGA fans. However, preventing a conspicuous unintentional mistake may be equally crucial for all parties. "They don't want to make any mistake that becomes the story," said Zelizer. "They don't want to do anything that becomes more important than the people they're running with. Pet-eating scandals and military service will take center stage. There's a good chance that a few topics may come up during the 90-minute discussion. Unlike the presidential debate, live microphones will be used the entire time, even when the opponent is taking questions. Unlike previous vice presidential debates, this one will include both candidates standing behind lecterns rather than sitting." Shortly after Harris selected Walz as her running mate, Walz's 24-year service record in the Minnesota National Guard was the target of Vance's assault. Vance, a public affairs professional and former soldier, charged Walz with stolen valor for leaving the National Guard before his regiment was sent to Iraq. According to Walz, he resigned in order to run for Congress in the United States in 2006. You know what Tim Walz did when his nation asked him to travel to Iraq? In August, Vance stated, he left the army and let his unit go without him. Furthermore, despite Walz's never having been sent into battle, Vance chastised Walz for once referring to weapons of war that I carried in war. The statement was used by Walz to describe his support for gun regulation, although he later admitted that he had misspoken. Walz has blasted the Trump campaign for elevating a conspiracy theory that Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, a city of 50,000 people in Vance's home state, have devoured locals' beloved cats and dogs. Vance has been a leading propagandist for the unverified rumors, which Trump used as justification for his claim that illegal immigrants pose a threat to Americans during his debate with Harris. Following the Trump-Harris debate, Vance remarked, "You tell me that you had this on your bingo card, and they're eating cats." This prompted supporters to yell, "We're not eating cats," at a Grand Rapids, Michigan, campaign rally. Former debate teacher and Texas A&M political rhetoric scholar Jennifer Mercica predicted that both Walz and Vance will attempt to embarrass and humiliate their opponent. According to her, Vance is usually more aggressive than Walz during arguments. However, she thinks that because the Democratic governor is more well-liked by most voters, he will enter the discussion with more momentum. She noted that given Trump's advanced age, it is even more critical that Vance demonstrate his presidential readiness, and that Walz strike a tough balance between fiercely criticizing Vance and projecting his folksy Midwesterner persona.